I'm always, people in our industry are always getting cut and punctured from like nails, honestly. We talked about structural instability after the hurricane. So many examples of that, countless examples of roofs and walls and things that have fallen over or are about to fall over. So then there are all these other examples, including the electrical hazard of just having such a complex job site. It's a commercial building. It's got high voltage electricity running, and it's got HVAC, and it's got mechanical systems, and it's got water throughout it, and things like that, and maybe fire extinguisher. Sprinklers and stuff like that. All kinds of things that you have to really worry about and maybe decommission before you start work, and that makes it safer. Like a lot of these things can be just taken care of by having a professional deal with it. We said that area is being remodeled and the rest of the building was in use. So that means that the rest of the building is going to have power and AC and stuff still running. So that makes the job even more complicated. You can't just shut the whole building off because people are still using the building, right? So now here's a picture of that house on St. Thomas that the hurricane blew off its foundation, apparently. And so we're trying to figure out, like, job site safety. How are you supposed to take that building apart? It's already at like a 20 degree angle or something like that, and you can't even hardly stand in there. I mean, it would be like standing on a roof and you're standing in the living room because it's already sloped. And so what would keep it from falling farther down the slope? Is it intact like it looks, or is there a bunch of cracking, and is everything pulled apart, like all the joints and everything? Are they all weakened? So that's an interesting challenge, that building, because I would worry about, it's holding together now, but once you go to start taking it apart, just how damaged is it, and what is the impact of having everything on a slope like that? And you're trying to work, you're trying to work on a wall, and that wall isn't straight up and down anymore. So, I told you earlier we went to St. Croix and we saw these old structures that, like this one, where it's either being renovated or it's being saved to renovate it later, feels like, And I love this arch, and I was thinking about how they made these arches back then, and they have the key, I think it's called the key, I forget what it's called, but the final piece that holds the whole thing together. And basically this half of the arch and that half of the arch lean against each other, and they hold each other up, right? If you only had one half, it would just fall over. And so that's fine as long as all the bricks are still there. But you see, if you can't, it's hard to see in the photo, but the bricks are starting to fall out. And at some point, it's like you've got this really strong structure, and then all of a sudden you don't. And you could say, well, how are we supposed to get this out safely? If we were taking this apart in order to save the bricks to fix up another historic building, like how could we take this apart safely, right? And these are the kind of things that we deal with all the time. We have to decide whether we want to build some kind of structure underneath it to hold it up, or whether we want to just pull it over and make sure nobody is anywhere close to it, And so a lot of safety issues they exist, and we have to come up with a solution that not only is safe, but it has to be something that doesn't take too long or cost too much. That's our world, We can't just be safe at any cost, Like we live in the real world, and the safety people in the world, they don't worry about costs. But those of us that actually do the work, we have to worry about costs. It can't take forever, and so we have to find something where absolutely no one gets hurt, but we still get the job done. Okay, and so now we often we'll have a safety plan, right? You can have a plan, and you can have a plan in a folder that you bring, you have it all the time. And it says you're going to do this, this, and this. You know, these are things you're going to do to keep people safe. And you can give that plan, that folder to every one of your employees and make sure they have that, right? And it's going to talk, you can talk in a general sense about safety. You know, like, you know, about how you're going to use a ladder, or how you're going to, when you're going to use fall protection, things like that, right? You can do that. You can say that stuff. Just like you wrote us a book about safety. But then you might, that's for general sense. But what about an individual project, like this project, right? Where you said, how am I going to get those lights there above the bleachers, you know? And that's a specific example. See the difference? It's like, I can always have a safety plan, but then I can have a job site specific safety plan. And that plan is going to tell me how, it's going to tell the workers and whoever is supervising, how do you get that light out there, you know? And you don't necessarily have it all figured out on day one. You might have to figure it out over time. Or you might have to bring in a piece of equipment to solve that problem, where it's just like, you know what, I don't know how to get it out. I'm going to get a lift, and it's going to lift me up there, and I'm going to get those lights out one at a time, you know? Because the lift can handle the weight of me and another person and the light, you know. And okay, I got it done, and I didn't have to use a ladder or anything. So, well, guess what? There's a whole set of safety issues of how do you use a lift, you know. There's a whole aspect of that too. So we've got things like fall and trip and hazards like that. We've got respiratory issues. Like a lot of concern about job safety is, what are you breathing in, you know, and it doesn't have to be lead, it can just be silica dust, you know, and that's bad enough. But it's just about getting, see, we were wearing masks before COVID, you know what I mean? Nobody had to tell us to wear a mask, you know, like we were already wearing them. So, and now but what about electricity? That's one of the things that bothers me about electricity. You know, that's like one of those hidden hazards. You know, there could be a hazard there, you don't know it. You know, if you see a bunch of dust in the air, you know not to breathe it, right? You can see that it's a problem. But when it comes to things that you can't see, like electricity, is it on or is it isn't on? I'll grab it and find out, you know? And the other thing is, there are things you can breathe that you can't see, and there are invisible, you know, gases and things like that that are probably one of the most hazardous things that you come across, because you just don't know they're there. And we had a guy, I've been doing this for 29 years, and I've never had a time loss incident. And a time loss incident means that I've never hurt myself to the point where I've lost time, where you have to take time off to go to the hospital to get a bone repaired, or you have to, you know, you miss work because you're injured because you pulled a muscle or something like that. In 29 years of doing this, I have never hurt myself to that level. Have I cut my finger? Yes. You know, have I stepped on a nail? Yes. But I've never done anything I've never done anything so unsafe that it caused me to be injured. So I'm really fortunate about that. And people say, oh, you should better knock on wood. You know, you can't say things like that out loud. You're going to jinx yourself. And it's, you know, I say it out loud a lot, and that way I don't ever forget, you know. And that way I don't ever let my guard down, because now I've got this record going, right? And at first it was like, oh, not a big deal. But now it's a big deal, you know. If I don't make it to 30 years, it's going to be a big deal, you know, because I've been like, oh, I got so close to 30 years without breaking my back or something like that. Then I can break my back after that. Yeah, so now there's other things you can do if you're running a job, and that might be before you can get there, you if you have a procedure in place, you can like say, okay, we're working in a new area and our workers haven't worked there before, and what happens if there is an incident? Like, what do they do if they feel like they need to transport their coworker to the hospital, you know, or something like that? Where is the hospital, or what are the options? So we, you know, that's part of our safety plan. Is like, that would be a job site specific safety plan though, wouldn't it? Because every job site is in a different area. So we often have a map from that job site to the hospital. I know everybody has that on their phone now, but it's something that we really used to focus on before everybody had Google Maps, you know, and it's still a good thing to do. Okay, let's keep moving, because I know safety is important, and I don't want to graze over too fast, but I will say that we only have so much time. This is just an introduction, right? If this was, we have classes that are 3 days that go into all of these things in more depth, but you get it. We're here for 8 hours. We got to keep moving. So, okay. So OSHA 10 has 10 safety categories that cover a lot of different things, and some of them don't apply to you on every job site, right? But it's good for workers to take the OSHA 10 class because they'll know about those things, whether they get to practice them or not. We always have a safety plan, but we also have a job site specific safety plan. Now this slide may not be in the manual, is that right?
No, it's not.
What?
No, it's not.
Yeah, this slide is not in the manual, right?
The picture is what the
picture
I
is
see
what
the
it-
slide itself.
This is, no, yeah, see,
Yeah.
at the end of every section, let me just, before you guys, because I see people flipping through the pages. At the end of every section, I do just a summary slide. It says,
No,
summary.
it's not there.
Okay.
And so they're not in the manual because it's just me recapping what we talked about, right? So it's not in the manual because it's in the manual but on different pages. So I just have a summary just to kind of wrap it up because we're done with this section. So our summary is OSHA 10 and then the job site specific safety plan, but in addition to having a regular safety plan. We talked about storm and earthquake damage specific, which you guys is really, I mean, like, I live in the Northwest, we have earthquakes, we have volcanoes, things like that. It doesn't come up every day, but I just, when I looked up, I think I looked up on Google, I Googled Virgin Islands demolition, and there were hundreds of photos of buildings being demolished after the hurricanes, right? And the earthquake and so on. So it's like, they're, and they all look damaged. But one thing I've seen about safety, and maybe that's why I've been so focused on keeping myself and my coworkers safe, is like an injury can erase the good work that you've done. And so like I look at it as we're doing good work every day. And it's great. It's almost like we're counting all of the good things that we've been able to. I've got 10,000 acres and 100 million pounds and all this stuff. And you just keep counting it up and it's all positive. And I've gotten kind of like used to every day being this positive experience where people are happy with what we do and they're thankful, and we're glad that we're doing these things. But then if you had an injury, because like if you push too hard or that's not sustainability as I see it. There's no room for disregarding safety. Like you can't just say I'm going to do this and that's all that matters. I mean, people's personal safety is a big part of that.